Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever anyone is tuning in to our conversation here with Bruce Pon, one of the newest board members at the LUKSO Foundation. I'm Tom Saris, for those of you who don't know me. I've been a fan of LUKSO and Fabian. I've been friends with since the first day I walked into the Ethereum Foundation in Berlin, back in Kreuzberg. For any of you that remember that old spot, I have been actively building, actually, in the LUKSO network with a new protocol called Mustaa for real-world assets and stuff like that, and actively investing through Cadenza Ventures. So it's great to be here today to talk about all things LUKSO and to get an opportunity to meet Bruce. Bruce, thanks for coming today. I appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us.
My pleasure.
So Bruce, you've been in the space for kind of a long time. I've kind of followed your work over the years, and it's the first time that we're actually getting to meet in this live stream format. So it's great. I'm excited to hear what you've been working on, but more importantly, I'd love to know a little bit more about your background. Like, how did you get into crypto in general? I see that you had an engineering degree, so that obviously makes a lot of sense. But tell me a little bit more. Tell me about your journey and how you ultimately ended up here.
Yeah, I won't give like the full bio, but I think what got me into crypto was a realization that there was a certain erosion of trust in the banks, in our intelligence agencies, and in the money supply. And so what I had been doing since 2004, 2005 was building banks around the world. And that was a response to the financial crisis, where I just felt that the banks had completely abrogated their responsibility to actually do things for people and real goods and the economy with their financial engineering. And then what happened in, I think, 2012 was the Snowden disclosures, the Assange disclosures, where we realized that the government may not be on our side. And at that time, I was giving lectures on banking and money because I'd been building banks and I'd been, generating credits and stuff into the economy. And I realized we didn't really understand what money is. And it turns out that I was attending some courses at MIT, and that's when I first heard about Bitcoin in around 2011. And so getting into crypto was essentially a positive way to turn my energy towards, based on being really pissed off with a lot of different traditional power structures that are degrading and continue to be degraded in the last decade and a half.
Yeah, it's funny. It's amazing how many companies have been built simply because somebody's been pissed off. Actually, some really amazing companies have been built. Don't piss someone off because they might build a really massive company.
Yeah, well, it's the most productive way to turn your energy, right?
It's true. I agree with that completely. It sounds like, you've had obviously a pretty, illustrious career. I understand that you were also kind of involved pretty early on in sort of on-chain IP and NFTs and stuff like that, pretty early actually, relative to where the NFT boom was, ahead of its game, really. Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what motivated you to get into that kind of stuff?
So one of the things in building banks was that we realized, even before crypto, was that the wealth of the world is in fundamentally land, physical plant, like machinery, and ideas. And Trent and I, my co-founder, Trent McConaughey, we saw that intellectual property would be the driving force moving forward. Everything's moving digital. And now that's obvious, but back then it wasn't the case. And so we said, is there a way that you could use...
Side is always 20, right?
Yeah. Well, we said, could you use the blockchain to ascribe and document copyright? So we went back to some of the earliest folks in the internet kind of industry, and we found one of the guys, I think his name was Ted Nelson, from the 50s and 60s when he was a college student, where he had originally designed like a two-way internet, and that was the original sin. And a lot of people have talked about that since. We talked to him, and then we talked to some guys who were former NSA guys and who commercialized the DNS, the domain name registry system, under Al Gore and Bill Clinton. And so they taught us the power of a registry, and we realized that blockchains were registries. And so we said, okay, if we can build like a stack of tools that allow for a registration in some sense of intellectual property, we just need to find the form factor. And obviously, right at that stage, we were the very first team amongst 2 or 3 to do it. There's one in New York, I think there was one in London, and there was us. But we were the ones who actually patented the idea of the NFT. We submitted a patent in, I think, 2013, middle of 2013, for the idea of the NFT. Yeah. But it was on Bitcoin. It was on the Bitcoin blockchain, right? We were parasites on the op return in the Bitcoin block chain, but it was generalized. And in fact, we had some team members who joined like 2 or 3 years after we had done the original Ascribe prototypes and built out something. By that time, we had like 30,000 accounts, like real accounts of people who had signed up at that time, which in hindsight, that was pretty good. But a couple of our developers said, everything you guys built with Ascribe, you could actually build on Ethereum. It seems like Ethereum is built for this. And we said, yeah, because Vitalik was one of the original people who worked on the Ascribe idea. And so
I didn't realize that. Vitalik was
no.
Ascribe? I didn't know.
Yeah, he was a third-party contractor. This is when he was running Bitcoin Magazine in Toronto. And he did some freelance work for a guy in Poland who he had outsourced to. And that guy he didn't tell us that Vitalik was working. We didn't know who Vitalik was. He was this 15-year-old. It was probably illegal to hire him anyways. So we were working with this Polish guy, and he brought in Vitalik. So Vitalik did see some aspects of the Ascribe system at the earliest stage, in early 2014.
Wow! Before mainnet launch of Ethereum, back when he was still pushing the white paper. That's amazing.
Yeah, well, we read the white paper the day after he released it in December 2014, I believe.
Wow, that's some incredible history. And so you went there. You went from there to Ocean Protocol. Is that right? Like that was sort of the next big move.
No, well, so we got 30,000 users, but we had to build a stack from completely new. Like we were most people don't notice. Like one of our friends was working at Facebook, and he says we're going to release this mobile first platform development tool. It's called React. Everybody uses it now. And so we were essentially one of the first team outside of Facebook to use React in our team for mobile first, because a lot of our users were mobile first. People in the art field and the creative fields were kind of early adopters of mobile and using stuff. So we actually built a mobile app on React, probably one of the first in the world outside of Facebook. So like, that's just one example. We did a whole bunch of other stuff with multi-sigs, wallets, all this kind of stuff. Trent defined DCS triangle, decentralized, scalable, and something else. I forget what it was. And then Vitalik also did ideas that was very similar to that also. So we did a lot of stuff in a pioneering side, but it was painful because there was no framework. Yeah, it was horrible. I mean, we had to use the Bitcoin op return to ascribe works like IP, like copyright and stuff like that. So yeah, on the other hand, we were a link between the initial internet builders of the 60s, the 2000s, and then we also had this aspect of copyright that we had to learn: copyright, IP, trademarks, brand names, and stuff like that. So we learned a lot. It was a lot of fun, but way too early. Still 30,000 users. I guess in hindsight, that was pretty good.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think there's many protocols and decentralized apps that would kill to have 30,000 users today. Even today.
Yeah.
People forget, like, we're still in the infancy of all this stuff, right? Like 30,000 users today, like actual users, not bots, but actual users. Because when you go look at a lot of these other protocols and a lot of these other networks, it's mostly bots playing ping pong effectively, right? And they kind of like obfuscate, like who the real users are and how that's going. And to be frank, like that's actually one of the things that I really love about LUKSO is they just don't play that game, right? You can look at a lot of these other protocols out there that are raising 100+ million, copying LUKSO code, but we won't go there. But ultimately, there's a lot of like false activity happening on chain, right? And so a lot of that kind of manipulative data, gets out there as kind of this, little self-reinforcing, idea. And, they don't really showcase real users actually using the platform. And LUKSO has actually done an incredible job kind of filtering all that out. So when you're looking at their user count, it's actually real users,
Right.
which I really appreciate about them as well. So, I mean, 30,000 is quite a few, man. And then you went, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, but we realized very early on that the tough part was commercialization, and there was no path to commercialization with even with 30,000 users. These are all students. Like they got $10 in their pocket for the weekend, so there wasn't much we could do with that, right? It was but then we realized, okay, let's work on this registry idea because we think that the crypto space was exploding. And people need like a decentralized registry. So we worked with the guys at Tendermint, Cosmos Tendermint, and we worked with Do Kwon. Is that his name? The guy from Toronto. And we worked on the Tendermint consensus. We helped that like harden that because we built BigchainDB, which was a decentralized distributed database using Tendermint consensus underneath. Yeah. So that it could truly be decentralized, so we could have this consensus algorithm. So we started learning about consensus algorithms, like all the research from MIT, there was a bunch from Toronto, a lot of stuff happening around the world. There was some stuff here in Europe around consensus models and stuff. So we tried to pick the best one, and it turns out, and now I think Cosmos underpins a lot of the chains that are viable. And so once again, we're one of the first ones to use it.
Yeah, and then that sort of became Ocean, right?
Yes.
I forgot about the BigchainDB in between those two, but yeah, you're right. That became Ocean protocol.
Yeah. So BigchainDB, we did good. We in a sense that we got like 50 different large enterprises to work on this, but then that was a different problem. They had a lot of money, but they're not that innovative. They'll put 100 or 200 grand behind a proof of concept, but it's not something where you're ever going to get something in production. Even today, I don't know what's in production. I mean, people might be using stable coins or something like that, but fundamentally,
even then, stable coins hasn't really fully penetrated the enterprise yet. Not really.
Right. It found a different use case, which is the degen use case, which is fantastic, right? Because we're eating our own dog food. But yeah, so we did BigchainDB for about 2 years, and then we were coming up to a funding round, Series A, I think, and then we said this dog isn't going to hunt, so let's right then in 2017 beginning, I think that's when Gnosis went out. There was a whole bunch of other ones that went out, and I said, Trent, come on, let's do this. Let's figure something out with BigchainDB. Let's tokenize this little puppy. Let's make something happen. And he said, no, it's not the right use case, yada, yada. In hindsight, we could have actually done it with BigchainDB. So he really worked for 2 or 3 months to try to figure out an idea where he could conceptually, intellectually, and morally kind of get behind, and that became Ocean.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And so that was like kind of like decentralized data exchange. I mean, even that was like really kind of ahead of its time, especially back then. And as you kind of look forward to today, where like agents, and all these things, and these data labeling companies that are like getting paid a fortune basically to label data for all the big AI companies. That's basically a data exchange in a lot of ways. But primitives that you guys were working on many, many years ago. That are now extremely relevant. Even verified compute, like I was looking at some of that stuff. You guys are really kind of dig into that, and that's going to be an absolutely critical vertical, TEEs and all that stuff on a go forward basis. So you guys have
I can tell you some stories from that.
Really,
so with Ocean, what we realized was that more and more data would go on a blockchain because it's verified.
Yep.
That's number one, right? So, and I think that trend is continuing even today. Even if people don't realize it, blockchains are exploding. The amount of data on a blockchain, like we just sync to an Ethereum node took a week. It's a lot, right? Like we are already getting a lot of data, and Ocean was an outcropping of realizing AI is going to use this data. It's not humans, it's AI.
Totally.
So if the AI is going to start crawling all this stuff, and we have huge server farms that are holding all these transactions around the world, we're going to migrate every single economic transaction on Earth in here, and then you're going to have trading, all this kind of stuff. And then on the other side, what we realized, Trent, my co-founder, he'd built 2 separate companies which were the first in the world to deploy AI at scale, and that was essentially verifying computer chip design, storage designs, memory, and all that kind of stuff. So I was using AI at scale, and realized that a lot of those algorithms that he had built in the early 2000s could be applied to potentially trading as well as blockchain.
Wow.
So we've jumped forward like 15 years, but we're at that stage now. Trent is essentially implementing a lot of his work from 2000, sold those companies and stuff, but he's using those models and that intellectual property to now apply that to, for instance, trading funds, stuff like that.
It's interesting. I had this really cool opportunity. It was funny. I was listening to it. I don't know, probably maybe it was like a month ago, because it kind of came back into my present moment. There's this podcast interview I did with Jutta Steiner back when she was still F-Core, I think it was. Maybe even she was still at the Ethereum Foundation. But it was basically 10 years ago. And we spent a good 15, 20 minutes talking about agents and the future of agents and autonomous agents. And, one of the things that, I thought was pretty remarkable is we both were in complete agreement that agents were maybe 10 years away. And this was probably in 2014. And I was just shocked. I was wow, we were remarkably accurate in terms of figuring out when agents were actually going to ultimately come to life. And, today they're super pervasive. And as we kind of move more towards autonomous software, agents acting on behalf of us in an autonomous way, things like data provenance are just going to be so critical to that future. With all of them, we'll have billions and billions of these agents, maybe hundreds of billions of these agents, interacting with our lives. And your product, and you've merged or something, right, with Singularity U and Fetch Data AI to create this new offering.
Yeah, no, we have a token merger, so it's token only, and then each foundation is separate and trying out their hypotheses as before the merger. So, we have 6 or 7 hypotheses that have been running since the merger, and they just continue. And so we as Ocean, as a foundation, still run our hypotheses. Where it makes sense, we can work with them, but it's kind of purely a token merger.
I am having some Wi-Fi issues. One sec, guys.
All right, one moment. We'll give it a quick pause, but thank you, Bruce. And if anyone has any questions, go ahead and hit the chat. I'm going to go ahead and put up the as Fawn says, elevator music while we get this resolved. Give me one moment. good, Tom?
Bruce, can you hear me?
Yeah, all good.
Let me see.
All right.
Seems like I'm still having some Wi-Fi issues here, so I'm just going to turn off my camera. We good to go?
Yes, we are. Yep, we could still hear you clearly, so that's good.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on, but for some reason got some bad Wi-Fi today. Sorry, Bruce, where did I leave it?
I don't know.
I
We were
forgot.
talking. I think we're finishing up on Ocean Protocol. We should probably talk about LUKSO at this stage, huh?
Yeah. So look, you are now a new board member at LUKSO. Maybe tell me a little bit about, how did you get involved with LUKSO? When did you meet Fabian? Tell me everything.
So yeah, we knew Fabian right from the very start when he was doing the MIST browser, the wallet, all this other stuff, ERC20. I think we lent LUKSO space for their very first office before they got the place on the river, in Berlin. So yeah,
Oh, really?
they were based out of, I think they were based out of Josestrasse in the Liedenstrasse in Berlin, which was where our office was. We had extra space. Yeah. I was one of the first token holders of LUKSO, I think, and to this day I still hold the exact same number as when I acquired them. I don't know how many years ago that is, probably 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, we were probably in the same round together. Pre-ICO, not even Rico. I think it was a SAFT or SAFE. SAFT, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, right at the very start. Yeah, that was the deal. I said, look, come on, Fabian, if you're going to be in my office, you're going to have to give me a part of this round.
Well, I think that was probably the decision. Fabian's a smart guy. So Fabian, from your office, like what excited you about LUKSO in general? Like, what was your sort of that kind of like original motivation to kind of back him? I mean, obviously, MIST browser, ERC20, Web3.js, like core innovations for the space. But what about his idea and his vision and where he wanted to take things? Like, how did that ultimately motivate you?
So there's a lot of parallels to ascribe because it's creators first. It was in an area that would not be obvious as a beachhead market. And what I've learned in more than a decade in the space is you want to back founders with a track record and the dedication, commitment, and the integrity to take it through. And I think that Fabian has done that. I mean, he's with the project. He's 100% committed. He's given his blood, sweat, and tears for this idea. And that's what you want. You want people who are going to be like the 300 in Sparta.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, what I really love about Fabian, and he's so dedicated to the cause. He's so dedicated to what he's building. I mean, he is like relentlessly going after it. I think people actually forget, the network's really only been live a few years, right? I mean, he spent years really spending an enormous amount of time trying to, rethink how the standards should ultimately be, improvements from his time at the Ethereum Foundation, creating basically the standards that we all use and appreciate today. And he's like, how can I make these better? And he spent so much time like going after that, and finally launched the network. And once the network was launched, it's like, great, now it's time to start building things on it, right? And I think people kind of forget that because we're in this like, hey, I need my token liquidity right now. I don't really care what else you have to build, but go make that token worth $1 billion, so I'm happy. And Fabian just doesn't think like that. He's so focused on getting that infrastructure to the right place to where he can actually see a lot of his ideas and visions coming to life. And I really appreciate that about him.
Yeah, and I think that this is sorely lacking in general in much of the innovation of the space. And so there are certain things that just take a long time. And this could be one of them. So having people who are willing to go the distance, who have conviction, who have the integrity and the stamina to just keep going. I mean, that's what we look for. I mean, I feel that Ocean is kind of like that as well, that we've just kind of pushed through everything, and just don't accept failure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think also people forget how long it took to actually build Ethereum, right? It wasn't like the juggernaut it was today. I mean, it took a super crazy long time before Ethereum was really taken seriously. Like, what, a good 7-8 years since network launch, right? Before it was actually the thing that people like point to as like the major success that, you know, was overnight, but not.
Yeah, but what was really interesting about Ethereum was that it stumbled forward to success. And I think
Yeah.
that is also a model that was quite useful, because the DAO explosion,
Yep.
implosion, explosion, you know, it's like PR. Any PR is good PR. And
Yep.
it got eyes on it, it got interest. Yeah, and people came into the space because of it. And then people, of course, wrote it off. Like Bitcoin has been written off 20 times. Ethereum's been written off like 15 times. And so there is something to be said about failing forward.
Yeah. I guess LUKSO has been written off like 10 times, so it still has a long ways to go. It needs to be written off at least 10 more times before people take it seriously.
Right.
So what is it that excites you most about LUKSO? I mean, you joined the board. That's kind of a big deal. You're definitely bringing a lot of OG experience to the table, a lot of, battle wounds probably. What are you looking forward to, and what kind of impact do you hope to make on both the project, its roadmap, and ultimately its long-term success?
So I look at it from the perspective of, I think Fabian's vision is the vision that's going to take this project forward. And I think it's useful to have a board member who has been in the trenches, in the war, and fought many battles, so that the board member doesn't freak out when you go through the typical vicissitudes of crypto, the extreme volatility, the chaos that happens. And so for me, that's, I think, what the value I bring, in that I have Fabian's back and the back of the executive team that Fabian's put together, as well as hopefully the back of the community.
Yeah.
We've all dealt with people who are impatient, VCs who are just dickheads, and nobody wants that. So what I can do is just be kind of like, be there as a resource if people need me. And I really just want to help out in any way that makes sense. I mean, it's not that I set low expectations, but at the same time, crypto comes at you. You don't really have to go searching for adventure in crypto. So we'll take the punches as they come, and we'll parry them if we need to.
Yeah, you know what I appreciate about Fabian too is he's really willing to ride it through all the way to the end. He cares so much about the vision coming to life, and rightfully so. I mean, he's been at the beginning of so many, huge mega trends. And you kind of need that. You need the founder with conviction who is willing to kind of just build regardless of what people say or think. And, obviously we, spend a lot of time trying to pull the community to figure out like what that should be. But ultimately, you just have to kind of persevere and continue to push forward, regardless of what's going on. But the growth has actually been amazing. It's funny because I had this one VC try to tell me, oh, there's only like half a dozen developers on the platform and it's a ghost chain. I was like, wow, you really like haven't taken 4 minutes to actually go look and see what's actually going on. I wanted to say like, well, there's at least 20 engineers that work on the team. That's more than 6. Let's dive into, the hundreds of projects that have been built in just the last year. Certainly, there's quite a bit. And when you look at the universal profile growth, which I think is a huge idea, I actually correlate universal profiles to the original implementation of Facebook Connect, if you can recall when that first came out. And it was supposed to be this like universal authentication into applications that I could then bring my social graph to. But then also the sort of sell to founders implementing Facebook Connect was, reducing friction in the onboarding flow of users, because you just, asked fewer questions. And so your, funnel conversion rate was ultimately higher. Universal profiles feels like a very similar thing to me, right? Where it's like, yes, I have my social profile, but it's also tied to my reputation, my wallet, my assets. And, if it can get enough integration steam over the long run, it could be the universal authentication method, sorry, not message, but method for, Web3 and Web2 apps alike. And I think that's a really powerful idea.
Yeah, I think the main thing that, so based on what you said, the opposite is nobody's going to walk around with an Ethereum address and say, this is me, right? Like that doesn't make any sense. It's not human. There's no empathy in a 0x, XYZ ID. There's just no empathy. And so a universal ID where you have kind of an avatar, you have additional contextual human information around that is what is something that's more relatable to humans.
Yeah, and I think that it's also the kind of core building block that Fabian's been trying to go after, ever since he came up with ERC 725, right? ERC 725 was such a huge idea, and actually has had, even to this day, still quite a bit of usage around it. And Fabian really, in fact, I remember being at the meeting where he really started to come up with ERC 725 as an idea. And this was probably, gosh, maybe 2016, 2017, when he was really starting to think about ERC 725. And even to this day, it's still one of the best identity standards out there that he's really kind of rolled into the LUKSO platform, or network platform, not really network, yes. That is really rooted in the universal profile concept.
Yeah.
What are your kind of like forward thoughts on LUKSO? Where do you feel like you can make the biggest impact for LUKSO and the community at large?
So I'm a strong believer in decentralization and the power of communities, the power of individuals to write a part of the future. And my take so far, and this could be wrong, is that the community just needs to get rid of, or not the community, but any barriers to the community moving forward should be removed. And so sometimes it's not that there's like not the innovation. Sometimes it's actually things standing in the way. And for me, I'm a big fan of individual responsibility. I've somehow turned into some sort of libertarian freak, and I believe in humanity. I believe in individuals. And so a lot of that freedom that people can exercise happens when you get rid of barriers. And so for me, that's what I look for. If there's anything within the foundation that the executive team can bring to me where we can get rid of any barriers, that's what I'm going to be looking at. And in terms of the innovation, I mean, we've been at the forefront of a lot of stuff, but I can't predict what happens into the future. And I have to have the crazy folks at the fringe who have big ideas and just let them fly. Give them the resources, give them the grant, and just let them build something. Let them burn. Like let them make something happen. Right?
Yeah, I think that's good. It looks like we have Fabian's going to hop in. Hey, Fabian, what's happening, buddy?
Hey, yeah, I have been listening. Thanks for all the flatter. So much, so much good word. Thank you, guys. I mean,
I love you, home.
I mean, it is
Fabian.
funny, like,
I might have a little bit of a delay. My Wi-Fi is all kind of fucked up. I'm not really sure why, but it's super good to have you on. Thanks for popping in for a little bit. Tell me about why you invited Bruce to join the board. I mean, I'd love to hear your perspective now that we just heard Bruce's.
I mean, the funny thing is that there's somehow a full circle. I mean, number one, yes, we had our office in the Chausseestraße. We then moved our office to the Köpenicker Chaussee. So we moved from one Chaussee to the other Chaussee, funny enough. And yeah, funny enough, I think even Trent interviewed me for a scribe back in the day. I mean, he was considering, getting me in on board.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
There's somehow a funny full circle here. I mean, also Bruce and also Trent, we have been staying in touch, and I guess there's also a shared understanding of the world, and like how we, exactly like you just said, how we need to empower the individual, and especially how can we decouple ourselves from the powers that be. How can we make sure that we as humanity have the infrastructure on which we can actually thrive without that we are now slaves to a state or slaves to a banking system that we have no control over, or even slaves of platforms that we have literally nothing besides an access pass called a password and an email. And honestly, how I see it is like, if we don't create a foundational infrastructure that enable us to rethink everything, how society is built, then I mean, it looks pretty dim. And blockchain is that infrastructure. I mean, blockchain is the only technology that I'm aware of that gives you this trustlessness or that gives you that infrastructure that is not owned by a single admin or a company, a DevOps team that can just go into the database and delete arbitrary stuff. It's the only place which is actually perfect for specifically a public account, and then after that build all the privacy layers on top of that as well, and really gives us this infrastructure that we need as humanity. Honestly, that's what I care about.
Fabian, what do you say to the critics out there? The people that want to criticize. Generally speaking, from my viewpoint, these are oftentimes people that have never actually really built anything from the ground up. So they don't really fully appreciate and understand the challenges that come into creating these things. What do you say to the critics? I mean, I can see your growth rates, and I have all the metrics here in front of me, and I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is pretty awesome. The project's only a few years old. And I also know your relentless sort of effort to weed out vanity metrics and stuff that aren't real, unlike many other projects, right? What do you say to people who are sort of critical in that nature?
I mean, number one, like, building real things takes time. I mean, as much as we all, and I too, I mean, want things tomorrow. The truth is, building real things takes the time it takes. And maybe to the critics in when it comes to LUKSO specifically, we had to build all of these steps. I was tweeting it the other day. If you want to build a house, you first need to have the roads and the infrastructure. That's the network, right? And then you can build a house, which is your universal profile. But then you need to have a living room, that's universal everything, and the grid. So there's some place to hang out in. And then in order to make it actually interesting, because by then you just have a house where you can be bored, we don't have a TV yet, or we have a mini TV. Then you need things like, you need a tool to verify and create tokens. You need to have the ability to create tokens. So we can finally get tokenization into culture rather than into speculation. And that's kind of a little bit like throwing a party, right? You can make tokens and give them away, and everybody's happy, confetti. And then you need also a way to claim. I mean, what I would like to achieve is, we need to get crypto, or we need to get this stuff into the real world. Because I have been around for a long time. I've been on so many crypto conferences, and barely any crypto conference anyone is using crypto. Like, the only crypto that's being used is like at home on your computer, on your trading desk, and maybe buying and selling here and there. But like, the actual usage, the actual thing, like where you just use it on the go and in an event, or with a group of people, it just doesn't exist. And even it was tried with POAP and other things, it's barely a full circle, because the next time you need your POAP, you don't remember which wallet you had it on, and maybe it was on that wallet, maybe it was on this wallet. I mean, I just, we got the new iPhone here and got into my MetaMask, put in the seed phrase, and now I have all my accounts not named anymore. And it's like, I have no fucking clue what is this. And it's a hard problem to solve in a decentralized way, but
user experience overall,
yeah,
which is very
what we're saying, if we don't have an account that's humanly identifiable, then like you don't get normal people to care. And for me, it's all about like, we have really building all of these steps, network first, then you need to build the controller apps that you can even have this new smart contract account. And then now we're building the last pieces to at least for the first time create a full circle in the real world. And that means the token generator that's coming out soon means anyone can build a token for anything. And I'm not talking here about ideally meme coins or some ICO project token, even though you can do that too, but things that are relevant in communities. Make it a badge, make it a role in your community, make it a fan token if you're an artist and you want to get some donations, reward them with a token. Tickets, if you have a small event going on and you just want to sell a ticket, a token is a perfect tool for that as well. Tokens can be used in such a variety of things, and we haven't even touched that yet, because without people being able to easily receive them and easily show them around when they need them, it just didn't happen because of exactly that reason. So we need to have all of these puzzle pieces in place for it to start to become an actual growth. And when people look at the numbers, I mean, the numbers that we have right now, this is early adopters. This is people who have been around for years. This is actually not the growth yet, because like without the puzzle being complete, there's no growth possible. But that puzzle is very soon coming into the form where it is complete, and then it's about reaching out to communities, interacting.
You guys recently the Ethereum bridge and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah, but like Ethereum bridge is still kind of like the old world, that's still like, oh yeah, move your assets from A to B, and that's necessary. These basic infrastructures are necessary. But when we win, when there's an event, let's say there's a cool pop-up and people come in, because of the brand or because of whatever they do there, and then they within like a minute have created a profile, claimed the token, don't care at this point in time, don't even know what the fuck they just got or what they even installed here. But the moment there's another pop-up or related thing, and then the guy asks, hey, do you have this badge, or do you have this access pass, or do you have this on your universal profile? And then the guy goes, oh, universal profile, oh yeah, I have that app, and clicks on it, shows the QR code, the guy can just easily verify, oh yeah, he has it, and now the guy skips the line. Now he starts to care. Now it's like, oh, I need that. I need to get more of this. I need to really be aware of where I can gather, and create these things. And that's when we get the ball rolling. And none of that needs an understanding of crypto. None of that needs an understanding of the technology. It just needs good UX. And it needs, for the event host or for the people who create these tokens, a very easy way to do that. And to check in with people and know if they have it or not, or have a way to distribute it to them in an easy way. And that's only that, then we can really start, seeing the growth and seeing what, can be done with all of this stuff. And we haven't had that yet, we needed to build the rails to drive the train, and that's...
Yeah, you were at the Ethereum Foundation how long did it take before you really start to how long did it take before you really start to see like a lot of like active usage of Ethereum? Can you recall that time, like the early days of Ethereum?
I mean, it's actually very easily to recall, because it was ERC20, and a few months after that, or like a month after that, when the first ICOs happened. Like in the first 2015,
network launch at minimum, right?
No, but the network launch, like there was at least 8 months of just a few developers playing around with smart contracts. We're building the Mist browser, but only like in 2016 on, when the first ICOs happened, people realized, oh, I can raise money and I don't need to start a blockchain. I just go here, I take that ERC20 thing, I just like make a little website to sell my token and I get Ether in, do a little bit of a wallet, Ether collection, and I can make money. And the moment that happened, I mean, this was the driving factor for Ethereum. It was the ICO wave, and in this case, it was very money focused, obviously. But that's what really brought in all the projects. And DeFi was just the thing that came after that, and NFTs came after that, and meme coins came after that. But what kicked it off in this case was the ICOs. It was the ability to so easily like launch a token. And in a way, we're kind of doing the same thing right now, except that it's not a token for money, ideally, but it's a token for culture. It's a token for communities. It's using this stuff in the place where it should be used, in my opinion, and where there's meaning, you know, where it creates these social fabrics, and the token is just the glue in it. So,
so you invited Bruce to join the board, and he accepted. What are you most excited about to have Bruce on the board with you? How do you think he's going to be able to help advance the mission of LUKSO?
I mean, number one, a voice of reason, specifically because we also have another Swiss board member that is obviously more concerned about the regulatory and all of these things, which is really important. But given that Bruce has been in multiple foundations, you know, has been in having made all of these experiences from, like, you know, the regulatory issues, the monetary issues, and all of these things, I just really think he will be a great addition and a voice of reason and a voice of perspective, really, when we make, you know, decisions and how we move forward. So given the experience that he has, it's like he's the perfect fit.
Yeah, Bruce, you clearly have quite a bit of experience. So I'm excited to see how that experience plays out across the foundation. I'm excited to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's on the end, I mean, on the end, it's all of us, you know, being on the same boat. It be it the boat of crypto, or be it the boat of the foundation, or, you know, be it the boat of Ocean or other protocols and projects. But ultimately, I want to see our things used in the real world, and that's what, you know, us and the team has been pushing and building so hard. But we're very, very close to having finally the ability to push that into the communities, you know, into people that haven't dealt with crypto. And that's what I really, like, you know, excited to see. And like, then, because then it becomes play. It's not anymore build the toy, but it's now play with the toy. And there's so many ways to play with the toy that I want to see, you know, which ones stick, you know, which one make people excited, and how can we make this like a circle and a self-runner, really.
So, Fabian, as we kind of close out our conversation today, can you just give us sort of a preview of what you think the next 6 to 12 months are going to look like for LUKSO? So that way we can kind of have, you know, some ideas and roadmap in mind of where things are going to be going.
So trying to keep it less technical. Number one, we're building the token creator is coming very soon. That means anybody will be able to create NFTs, NDTs, non-divisible tokens, and normal tokens for whatever purposes they want. We even give pre-categories like tickets and collectibles and all of this stuff that then select the smart contract standards under it automatically, so the user doesn't need to understand that stuff because they don't. Then we will launch a token verifier. That's kind of the thing you can give to a bouncer and say, here, just, you know, load that website on your phone, scan people's QR code, and if it's a check mark, let them in. If it's a cross, don't. And then we will build a tool that can easily claim tokens in real world events that will allow, you know, a brand, a community, a meetup to distribute tokens, be it a proof of attendance or be it like some kind of whatever, you know, whatever the reason is why they give tokens away. And then more long-term discoverability is really important. Like right now, like people don't want to look at block explorers. They don't understand anything, especially with our standards that are more sophisticated. It's not simple, you know, token from A to B things anymore. There's a lot more complexity. So we need to feed, you know, activity. You see what's going on, what are people doing, where there's an airdrop, where are people claiming something, and where are people creating something, and where are people buying something. Down the road, obviously, you know, ideally we have ways to post messages in a decentralized way, you know, having messaging and all of this kind of standard social stuff, but we want to do it then the decentralized way, like the real encrypted, real decentralized, real independent way. And that's sadly a little more complicated. Also, privacy layers can be built on top of this, you know, selective revealing of data and private data and like maybe token gating, but actually really decentralized token gated content, like that's actually encrypted and shared and decrypted. Yeah, I mean, and I want to actually prepare a tweet to really go more in detail to this. But there's a lot of smaller details. You know, there will be a lot of customization you will be able to do on Universal Everything. There will be grids coming to tokens. That's kind of like a big deal, even though it sounds so arbitrary. So if you have a grid underneath the token page where you can have mini apps and text and content that's relating to a token, and in this case, the grid is actually stored in the smart contract. That means, you know, the apps you see here, the content you see here was added by the token creator. So, you know, that's the ultimate source of truth, right? You don't need to go to CoinMarketCap or find a Twitter account and then find the wrong one to kind of know what the token project's trying to say or do, or apps to use. They're literally underneath the token, literally linked and verifiably linked from the smart contract. That just opens unlimited possibilities of what you can just like make a token, you know, do and how you interact with them. And then more down the road, obviously DAOification, creating tools for managing profiles, you know, as a community, but also very important, manage profiles as a team or as a company. That's another big thing that we're going to build, because if you want to get brands or companies into using crypto, like if you tell them, yeah, just make your employee create like a private key and create it on their phone, and then they can authorize other people, which is already possible, then a company, you know, they might fire the guy, you know, and then you know, who's the initial controller of the profile. And in our case, the initial controller address controller key is important for cross-chain profiles. So you need a way that they can create a profile with a ledger as the initial controller, with a backup file as the initial controller, so that they can then authorize employees to control the profile, but they can revoke that access when they get rid of them or when roles change. And once you have that, now a brand can actually have a long-lasting account, knowing they're not going to lose it. Whatever staff changes they have is not going to affect it. And now they can really start to issue this and that and marketing and tokens and whatever things from the same identity. And that provenance, that like long-lasting identity is the essential piece to even get into, you know, commercialization of Web3, right? You know, if you have like a little like a PR company in the middle that like says, yeah, we create an NFT for you, and then they change, and then next time they create another thing and they have to create another profile, like that's not cool for the end users who collected that stuff, right? They now got literally nothing because can't really prove like, oh, what's the real profile here? They just swapped it 5 times, you know. So it's these kind of pieces that need to be in place to really make it even like really like enterprise commercially ready, right? And that's just a few of a lot more pieces in the works.
And like at the end of the day, you know, Web3 is still very much in its infancy, right? I think, you know, when Bruce was mentioning earlier, you know, he had 30,000 users for his project, you know, 10 years ago almost. 30,000 users today in a Web3 project is actually a lot. A lot of people don't realize actual users, not the 100,000, you know, bots that have created accounts, but actual verified users. You know, not some vanity metric that somebody's throwing around while bots play ping pong.
Like people, you know, like people, right? That's what we need. People who actually care, and that's exactly why reusability, you know, and this real world events kind of stuff is so important, because here you have a need to use it, because you need to use your profile again, show up with that token, that badge, and that thing. So it becomes like the thing that, you know, we have to have Luma, even though we don't give a fuck about Luma. But if you want to get in here, you know, I need that kind of Luma thing. And with tokenization, you can just create so much more like gamification around that, like than rather than just a simple ticket. You just click a register button. Here you can make it like a Schnitzeljagd to get to the status that gets you into the thing, you know, and that's something that you can't do with a Luma, you know, you can't.
Well, Fabian, thanks for hopping on. And Bruce, I'm excited for you to join the board. I'm excited to see what, you know, LUKSO is going to do over the course of the next 6 to 12 months. You know, I've been a huge fan for a long time. Fabian, you're doing a great job. Community's growing, network's growing, user acquisition is happening. We just got to keep building and maintain stamina, you know, something that Bruce admitted to. So thank you again. Any parting words before we sign off?
I mean, I'm just asking, when's the, is there like a LUKSO conference sometime?
I mean, you know, let's get the price up and we make a LUKSO conference. We have the perfect,
All right.
we have the perfect event space. We have that little pyramid right in front of our office, which is an amazing event space with a 300 speaker sound system. That would be a great place to make a LUKSO conference. So,
all right,
awesome.
Cool. Sounds good.
Thanks, guys. Yeah. You guys have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tom, for taking the time, and thank you, Bruce, for taking the time.
Sorry for shitty
Wi-Fi. And we're for a little, like, you know, elevator break. That's a funny one.
Exactly. Potty break.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks to everybody in the community for listening.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.
Bye.